Broadcasting from the heart of the nation, the next generation in conservative talk radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Why, yes, it is. What is up, my friends? Welcome into it. Hey, happy post-Monday celebration. Greatest day of the entire week. We are setting that tone. We're going to carpe diem all over this place, which is what we do on the show each and every day. As usual, always thank you for joining us. It's a short-lived time each and every day, but by golly, we try to do as much as we can in that short amount of time that you and I have together. And what a day it is. It is day number 7 of Government Shutdown Day.
We're all going to die because of you!
What's the latest? Apparently there was another vote this morning, or they're going to vote this afternoon. I don't know. It's not. I stopped following the votes right now because it's not going anywhere. There's been no crack, although I will say, and we will talk about it in just a bit from the program, there is beginning to be a crack in the wall of Republicans that may waver. That's unfortunate. Not necessarily unexpected, because Republicans tend to have the history of being the first ones to cave when it gets really tough and when the rubber hits the road. So we will cover that. Will we see Republicans or Democrats cave first in the ongoing budgetary shutdown and the battle of the wits in day number 7 of government shutdown? So welcome into it. Doing our thing for a Tuesday.
Do it live!
Like we do on the show each and every day with so many great radio affiliates across the nation. Troy Miller will be on the show, bottom of the hour, the president and CEO of the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters. We will talk about the FCC. We'll talk Charlie Kirk. We'll talk a revival in faith. And are we seeing a lot of censorship from faith-like content on social media? That's kind of interesting. So we'll get to all that at the bottom of the hour. But first and foremost,
what's trending today?
I want to get right to our first guest of the day. I know we double booked ourselves again today because there is a lot that I want to cover, and I'm really excited to have on the show. If you're not aware, today is the 2-year anniversary, and I hate to say anniversary because anniversaries are supposed to be like a positive thing, and this is by no means a positive event, but the 2-year remembrance, we'll put it that way, of the October 7th attack on the nation of Israel. Now, at this time, we are in conversations with Hamas for the peace and potential ceasefire in the Middle East. We've already created peace with Israel and the nation of Iran, thanks to President Donald Trump. We can thank him for that one. And now the conversations are ongoing in the nation of Egypt between the two nations. There is a vigil, apparently, that was held just a little while ago at the home of Benjamin Netanyahu from Israelis that are hoping for peace as we continue on with these conversations. Will they actually happen? And will we see peace for the first time in a very long time, or some type of ceasefire or calming down of the violence in the Middle East under the Trump administration? To talk about some of that and a heck of a lot more, really happy to have on the program. He is a threat analyst and an author of his book, The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Radical Strife. Really happy to have on here Mr. Ken Abramowitz. Ken, how are you, my friend?
Great to be with you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I appreciate you. We are so close, and today being the 2-year memorial of what happened on October 7th in the nation of Israel, is it significant with the fact that we're coming up on this anniversary now at the time of having this peace talk, and do you actually think we could see peace in the Middle East?
Peace in the Middle East. How many hours are you having me on your show to go through that issue?
That's right.
So there's been nonstop war in the Middle East for 1,400 years, and more before that. 1,400 years ago, Muhammad and his followers made the decision to take over the world. And in a 100-year period of time, they took over half of the known world. And so the war that Israel's fighting is a continuation of that 1,400-year war. We're just looking at a little snapshot, namely October 7 to October 7. So we're looking at a 2-year snapshot. I just want to bear in mind it's part of a 1,400-year war.
Sure.
Now, this little 2-year war, I think, is winding down. And one of two things is going to happen in one or 2 weeks. And Prime Minister Netanyahu publicly said, we're going to end this war shortly, either the hard way or the easy way. The easy way, not that it's easy, is to negotiate a settlement with Hamas and the other Arab Muslim countries backing them. That's the, in quotes, easy way, but it's never easy negotiating with a terror organization.
Right.
The hard way is, as it becomes obvious over the next week or two, that Hamas is not willing to stop the war. It's not willing to hand in its weapons. It's not willing to hand over all the hostages. And then Israel has to do it the hard way, namely sending in 30, 40, 50,000 soldiers and just muscle their way through the Hamas terror organization and look for the hostages wherever the IDF confines them.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily the popular way to go, right? You said it is the hard way, which is going to be difficult anyways, especially with a terrorist group like Hamas that likes to use the civilians in that Gaza Strip as kind of their barriers and shields between the IDF of Israel and their own soldiers. So that's very difficult, and it's not popular globally. If we have to go that route, what would that look like on the international stage when there's already a lot of negativity against that idea? And apparently there's been a very good PR campaign from Hamas and the Palestinians from the river to the sea, and how Israel's the evil ones and how the IDF is, killing all these innocent children and women and so on and so forth. How would they have to deal with that type of PR if we had to go that route, God forbid?
Well, that's one of the reasons why Israel wants backing of America. And President Trump has publicly said that if Hamas does not hand over its weapons, stop fighting, and hand over the hostages within 3 days, he said, I'm going to let Prime Minister Netanyahu do whatever he thinks he has to do to end the war. So with American backing, it's a lot easier.
Sure.
And also, I don't think we're talking about another year. I think we're talking about another 3 months.
So this could be done really by the end of the year, which would be really encouraging one way or the other. Now, I don't know the details of this negotiation, this potential ceasefire and peace deal that they're trying to work on right now. Does this include the stepping down of Hamas as a government entity from that Gaza Strip, from the Palestinian people, for them to elect maybe a new government or a new group of leaders, but someone who's not, like you mentioned, a terrorist radical group that has called for the death of Israel and the death of the United States? I mean, is that a mandatory part of this? You lay down your guns and you just walk away?
Yes, but there's a few other issues here. First of all, if that were to happen, there'll be another group of bad guys who will rise up. There's just in the Middle East, there's nonstop bad guys.
Yeah.
Okay, for 1,400 years, and by the way, before that, since 3,300 years ago, Israel, the early Jews have been in nonstop war with the pagans. When Israel produced, or they would say, or we would say, God gave the Torah, or the Ten Commandments, to Israel, that began the war with the pagans, because the pagans rejected the Ten Commandments. So Israel's been in a 3,300-year war with pagans, and then a 1,400-year war with Muslims. So there'll be another group of bad guys. So that's the bad news.
Yeah.
But the good news would be at least Hamas would be defeated. Now, Hamas does not want to be defeated. In the history of death cults, death cults don't go quietly. If you go back to World War II, there was the Japanese death cult, there was the German death cult. At 9/11, we witnessed the Al-Qaeda death cult, and then there was the ISIS death cult, and there were only military solutions finished them off. So I would say there's an 80% chance that Israel's going to do it the hard way, namely finish off Hamas physically, and a 20% chance that Qatar and Turkey and Egypt will put so much pressure on Hamas that they'll surrender. But I think we'll find out in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. We're talking with Ken Abramowitz, author of the book, The Multi-Front War. The people of Gaza, the people of Iran, the Middle Eastern Muslims that aren't the radicals, that are tired of the Islamo-fascists that have taken over the majority of those governments around those areas. I saw videos when we saw after the bombing that Trump did on the nuclear site in Iran and in the peace deal that came thereafter. I had seen tons of videos of people in Iran saying, now is our opportunity to change our government system. Now is the time to get rid of the radical Islamo-fascism that's been running our government for a long time. Now is the time to get rid of some of these radical leaders. And obviously, Israel being a nation that has Muslims, it has Jews, it has Christians, it has so many people that are actually in the government, living peacefully together in the citizenry. Can we start seeing other nations and the people of those nations realize, hey, maybe we need a change here. Maybe we don't need these radicals taking us over and telling us how to live our life.
Yes, that's the hope out of this mess. And we've seen it in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia 20 years ago was a real bad guy. They were funding terrorists. And then under new leadership, approximately 10 years ago, they'd become a Muslim country for religion, but not a politicized Muslim country. Just to give you 30 seconds, Islam is both a religion and a political movement.
Yes.
So Saudi Arabia now would say, putting words in their mouth, we're a religion, and we're in Saudi Arabia. We're not trying to impose Islam around the world. We're not an Islamist country anymore. We used to be, but we're not now. I would like to see other countries like Qatar and Turkey say the same thing. And in Iran, news reports say 80% of the people want to get rid of the government. And they've been suffering so much. By the way, the number one victim of Islamism or political Islam are the Muslims themselves.
Yeah.
And so in Iran, they figured it out. They want to get rid of this Islamist government. They're still Muslims, but they want to get out of the business of politicizing Islam and spreading it throughout the world.
Well, there's been so many great cultures in that area, right? I mean, the original culture of Iran was a beautiful culture, and it wasn't Islamist, and it was, that's where the Zoroastrians originally came from. That was the Arabs that came from, and, the Arabian beliefs are completely different than the Muslim beliefs. I mean, that's where all of that was, and they were beautiful, rich cultures until this radical Muslim mindset came in and just took over everything.
That's right. And just as Saudi Arabia expelled that the Islamism stayed Muslim, as I said, but expelled Islamism.
Yeah.
Other countries can join in. For example, Egypt and the Gulf states have declared the Muslim Brotherhood illegal terror organization. The irony is the Christian countries have not declared Islamism to be illegal, but the Muslim countries, because they know the threat from Islamism, and so that's why President Trump wants a peaceful, in quotes, peaceful resolution, because it will send a message to other Islamist organizations that you're going to get killed if you pull these stunts against America and Israel, and it'll bolster the Muslim countries that are Muslim in religion but not Islamist in outward appearance.
Yeah, it's a great point. Ken, we're out of time, my friend. I appreciate it very much. We're moving in the right direction. I'm eternally optimistic that Donald Trump, and we've seen more movement on peace under the Trump administration than we've seen in a very, very long time, and I hope we continue this on. It is the multi-front war defending America from political Islam, China, Russia, pandemics, and racial strife. You can find the book on Amazon and other places. Ken, we appreciate it very much. Thank you for coming on for the significant day today. Hopefully we can see some movement. But let's get you back on for another update soon, my friend.
Yes, and people should look at my website, SaveTheWest.com. It's complimentary, and they'll learn from it.
I love it. SaveTheWest.com. Go and check out all the information. Ken, we appreciate it, brother. God bless you, and we'll get you back on real soon. Got to take a break. We'll get your thoughts on some of that and the latest from the government shutdown when we come back around the corner for your post-Monday celebration. Lots to get to. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. When reason meets radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
This is very simple. Open up the government, and this is a non-issue. We don't have to have this conversation. Everybody gets paid when the government is open. The Democrats can do it by delivering a handful of votes this afternoon. We could go in there and we could open up this government. The president's ready to sign it into law, as the speaker pointed out. If that doesn't happen, there are a lot of really bad things that happen to the American people, and there are going to be a lot of people who aren't going to be getting paychecks. And he mentioned our troops. That is a something that becomes a reality starting next week.
Yeah, so Senate Majority Leader John Thune speaking earlier today regarding the government shutdown. Hey, it's very simple. Open up the government, then we can negotiate whatever we want to talk about. We can deal with whatever we need to deal with. We can haggle on whatever we want to with health care. But right now, got to open the government. Now, for most conservatives, we're just like, meh, whatever. It's governments shouldn't be closed like that. I get it. It causes a lot of headaches. It causes some problems. Apparently by the 15th, I want to say, then we're going to see some programs begin to have to shut doors that are really helping individuals across the nation. So that is not good. On the other front, this is the blessing in disguise, maybe. As the Trump administration says they are working on doing some major slashes and reforms at the federal level they weren't normally able to do when the government was open. So there is an opportunity there. But the Democrats also held their press conference, and it shows right now in the ongoing battle of wits that no one is wavering right now.
Our position, Democrats' position, has been totally consistent. It hasn't changed. We want what an overwhelming majority of Americans want. To end this shutdown and address the health care crisis that will send premiums soaring for millions. Republicans' big old ugly bill will kick millions of American citizens off health care and drive costs through the roof. They know they're on the wrong side of this. More than 80% of Americans agree with Democrats to extend the tax credits.
Okay, so that's what it's all coming down to. Tax credits for Obamacare. Now, this would be, you would think, and I'm just thinking outside the box here. I'm hoping for Republicans and Democrats alike that maybe the aha moment could kick on and you could come up with some alternative strategy for the moment while we're sitting in a quagmire in Washington with the two political parties not wanting to capitulate to one another. Which wall is going to crack first? It seems like there's a bit of a fine hairline crack fracture that's happening on the wall of the Republican side, which is not necessarily surprising with the history of Republicans, although it is vaguely unfortunate. Congresswoman, out of all of them, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene made a post earlier today on her social media, on her Tweety, that talked about Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, saying that she was not there when it originally passed. But I'm going to go, this is her quote, by the way, I'm going to go against anyone on this issue. I'm going to go against everyone on this issue because when the tax credits expire this year, my own adults, children's insurance premiums for 2026 are going to double, along with all the wonderful families and hardworking people in my district. No, I'm not towing the party line on this. I'm not or playing loyalty games. I'm a Republican and won't vote for illegals to have any taxpayer-funded health care or benefits. I'm America only. I'm carving my own lane. So, the potential capitulation now of some Republicans saying, wait a second, insurance premiums could be doubling. Maybe we need to solve that issue. And again, I'm just thinking outside the box. Use this as you will, Republicans or Democrats, that if this is the opportunity we have with the failure of Obamacare and the only way that government health insurance works is by subsidizing it through the big government programs, through the federal government itself in order to keep premiums low, by the government paying for the majority of the insurance premium that we're not covering ourselves out of pocket, maybe, just maybe, this is the opportunity for us to reform it in the first place? I don't know. If Obamacare is not working without subsidies from the federal government to offset the premiums that could be potentially doubled by the end of the year, why don't we as Republicans, with the majority in the House and the majority in the Senate, although slim it may be, do the original plan of what we had? Repealing Obamacare. And as Donald Trump had said, even in the first administration, repeal Obamacare and just flood the market with a whole bunch of new insurance companies to compete, to lower prices, raise quality, and get rid of government health care. Just a thought.
This is the voice of reason with Andy Hoosier. Truth, reason, and common sense. This is the voice of reason with Andy Hoosier.
Is Trump doing what he promised in the 2024 campaign? Yes, 52%. The majority of Americans say that Donald Trump is doing what he promised compared to 48% who said no. So what essentially is going on here is the voters expected all of this from Donald Trump. The majority did, and that is why his favorable rating, simply put, has not really moved all that much compared to where it was a year ago. Trump is basically doing what the American people thought that he was going to do. Indeed, if you look at the numbers, Trump has basically the steadiest favorable rating this much through a presidency of any president on record, and it's basically where he was a year ago, good enough to get him reelected.
You know, there's a lot of these poll numbers that come out that CNN reports, and I got to be honest, I'm a bit shocked that CNN would even allow them on their network because...
Say what?
Yeah, that overwhelming majority show that the American people think that Donald Trump's doing what he said he was going to do, has his approval ratings that are the most steady, consistent out of any president we've seen in the past couple of decades. I would say that's a big win, right? It's kind of big, even though the other side doesn't quite like that. They're just baffled. They're mind-boggled with how crazy it is that people still continue to support President Donald Trump. Speaking of, let's go to our
What's Trending Today.
Plenty to talk about today, and I want to bring on our next guest. I always love chatting with him on the program as we talk about censorship from social media, censorship on maybe some of our TV outlets, of course, with the FCC, and, of course, the reaction and the coverage that we've seen from some of the mainstream media on topical issues of the day. He is the president and CEO of the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters. Happy to have back on the program, Mr. Troy Miller. Troy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well today. Having me on again.
Oh, it's always great to chat with you. I want to start off with this, with the way the media handles certain issues. We covered and watched how they covered the Charlie Kirk assassination a few weeks ago. Then, of course, we had the crazy rhetoric that was on social media, the crazy rhetoric that was made by certain pundits on different TV outlets. I mean, and yet they were apparently allowed to do that because their coverage is, I guess, fair and unbalanced or something. I don't know. But Troy, where are we at with content control in this nation, and especially with some of the content coming out of some of the left-wing media sites?
Well, you're right. I mean, it was amazing, especially the Charlie Kirk. They immediately went to, paint him as a villain, paint him as the bad guy. Of course, this was all the fault of the MAGA followers and the right and everything. The thing I think about the media coverage with Charlie Kirk was that at least was the most exciting to me was the backlash that came not from the normal organizations that it was a grassroots backlash to them this time, and it came up through broadcasters like Nexstar and Sinclair, who are hearing from their audiences, and that was, it won't wake the left up at all, but it should, because that's where the sentiment is today. The grassroots is done with it. People are, Charlie's thing, I think, was just over the top. Yeah. Nobody could put somebody being assassinated on the person who was assassinated. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
we still have a problem today in mainstream media.
That's a great point. We've deemed on this program, we've talked about it as the domestic abuser syndrome, to where we saw the same rhetoric when Donald Trump's assassination attempt happened last year, where Democrats in the mainstream media essentially said, hey, we wouldn't have to violently assault you or try to kill you if you would just act the way that we want you to act. The same way that any domestic abuser would in some kind of situation. Are we living in that type of world? And how the heck do we get out of that type of scenario to say, hey, wait a second, I don't have to toe your line. I don't have to live the way that you want me to live. And there by default, I shouldn't have to live in fear that you're going to come after me and try to assault me or try to physically attack me just because I'm not doing what you want me to do or believe the way that you want me to believe. I don't have to live in an abusive relationship with you.
Yeah, that's right. For years from the left, all we heard was tolerance, tolerance, tolerance. We don't have any tolerance. And then the left, I think they perceived, it started, look, I'm just going to say it, under the Obama administration, they perceived that the winds of change had shifted in their direction, that they were now the majority, and immediately threw the word tolerance out of the window to the word obey. Right. Be on our side, or we're going to come after you with everything we can. And again, we saw that in the Biden administration, how much the government was weaponized against free speech, against Christians. And now, of course, we have this thing come out about the FBI weaponized spying on members of Congress. I mean, give me a break here on the light. But I think that's our problem. How does society break this when one side thinks that the only thing that works is when you follow their rules?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Let's just do a theoretical here for just a moment. Obviously, you running a religious media company, a Christian media broadcasting that you do with the NRB. Let's just say that if someone from the other side had passed away and let's say Joe Biden's son, when he passed away from cancer, like Tony Snow had passed away, communications director for the Bush administration back in the day when he died from brain cancer. And let's say someone on your media organization said, you know what, good riddance for that person. We don't like them anyways. To hell with them. If you had said that, or if someone had said that, what would happen to you and your media broadcasting with Christian media if that type of rhetoric was being spread around?
Well, we wouldn't be talking today because I'd probably be somewhere so deep underneath a jail somewhere. That's the point. The mainstream media my name would have been on every headline across every paper of this country. Yeah. I'd have been on the nightly news. My family couldn't walk outside. That's the kind of pressure that would have been put on anybody from the right had that scenario played out. But here, that's not the case. I mean, you get the guy running for governor in Virginia, who we find out in the text, he calls for the murder, torture of people, their family, of the AG, and people are going, free speech, free speech, free speech.
It's crazy. Where is that line drawn, do you think, Troy, when it comes to especially government regulation in the FCC? I get it. We have the First Amendment, and it means that the government can't come after you for rhetoric. However, that doesn't mean there are no repercussions and cause and effect or actions and reactions or consequences to an action if we say something horrible in the private sector. But where is that line for the FCC especially to if you are expressing your freedom of speech versus advocating and promoting violence in society, which is not tolerated? Where do you think that line's drawn?
That's the clear line right there. You said it well. The Supreme Court has already decided on this, already has a case out there. It's case law that says anytime you go on the FBI's page and look at hate crime and hate speech, if you call for violence, if you call for injury, if you call for harm of another person, you have crossed the line from free speech into unprotected speech. That's not protected by the First Amendment. This is what the Supreme Court decided. And so, but we see this all the time. Even the court even says if you're using, you don't have to use the direct words like, go out and, murder Troy Miller. You can just say words that would incite violence. Troy Miller's a fascist. He's a racist. He's this, he's that would incite people to violence. And that that's the purpose of incite to violence. You cross the line, and that's when the FCC gets involved.
Yeah, well, and that leads to the question is why then haven't we tried to actually enforce some of this when we have half of the Democrat Party that has said Donald Trump is a Nazi, Donald Trump is a fascist, Joe Biden with his, stormtroopers with that red light coming up a couple years ago during that Labor Day weekend where he has said Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans are an extremism in this nation that is a complete threat to democracy. Why is that not considered hate speech or a threat to violence that the FCC or someone should step in and say, hey, wait a second, we can't be saying this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I agree with the president on this one. I think the Justice Department needs to sort of up its game and step in here. In the case of any of these lawmakers or any of these folks that are saying it on news programs and pundits, they need to step up and say, hey, you guys have, at least at the initial, say, a letter, because there's several letters that were sent. You guys have engaged in hate speech. Yeah. Continue this kind of speech, and you're going to be talking to our investigators because we're going to be charging you with this. And look, it needs to happen because something has to stop this.
Right.
The left is not going to stop on their own.
No, of course not. No, we're talking about Troy Miller, President and CEO of the National Religious Broadcasters. We got just a couple minutes left here, Troy. I want to shift gears, and because of the hate that came out after the Charlie Kirk assassination, the vileness, it made me sick watching some of the comments on social media, all over on every different social media platform. In response to that, I'm always the eternal optimist in that we're going to see more positivity than we are bad. We're going to see more love than we are hate. That overall, that mankind is still generally good and moving in the right direction. Do you think that that's maybe sparked a bit of a revival, or maybe because of the messages from Charlie Kirk and people going back and looking at him, maybe seeing a revival in faith or in some aspect and saying, these people are crazy, they're very hateful, I want nothing to do with that mindset?
Yeah, I think two things there. First of all, as you said, the hateful rhetoric, I think, has had a huge backlash because they have no proof. They can't go out and show clips of Charlie actually saying hateful stuff because Charlie loved people. He cared about people. He cared about people who are the opposite opinion of him.
Right.
And so if you ever watch his debates, you ever watch his discussions he had, you just can't find that there. And they're seeing a real rejection of that across society. Look, we've got a number of ministries, campuses, churches have all seen a huge, huge uptick in people attending on-campus ministries, attending churches over weekend, attending events, concerts, all kinds of things. So I do think this has sparked a real backlash, in this case, a real revival. More people are asking about faith. More people are inquiring about faith. And then we're seeing some real genuine, I'm just going to call them conversions. I mean, people that were downright left atheists, didn't believe in God at all, have come to the point to say, no, I reject all that. This is the only hope we have. And so that on that side of things, it's very I'm very optimistic and very hopeful that we're going to see that continue to spread.
I love that. That's what it's all about, moving in that right direction, showing and leading by example through that love, that light, and that positivity, which is what we need. Troy Miller, National Religious Broadcasters. Troy, we appreciate the time very much, my friend. God bless you. Let's get you back on again soon.
God bless you. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate it very much. One more segment left as we wrap things up for your post-Monday celebration. Lots more to cover. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. America's safe space for common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I'm running out of time, but this is, in many respects, the most important. What merger you created
of Canada and the United States.
That wasn't where I was going.
That's not where I was going. I love that. Donald Trump having the meeting with the Prime Minister of Canada today and talking about more negotiations, more trade deals, more tariffs. Good. You know what? Have the conversations. You can never stop anything. Or I guess you can never have a bad relationship if you continue on the conversations, right? Just keep talking. And Canada, which is still a great ally with the United States, we've had our rough patches, and they've taken advantage of us for a long time, and we've allowed them to take advantage of us for a long time. We're finally just like, hey, you know what? We're going to do something a little bit different, and they seem to be okay with that. So Donald Trump and Canada getting along just fine. I love that. If you missed it, he was like, hey, the big breaking news, we're going to see the merger between the U.S. and Canada.
I'm running out of time, but this is, in many respects, the most important. What merger you created
of Canada and the United States.
That wasn't where I was going.
I love that. It's you know what? Donald Trump knows how to have fun, even when it just pokes the bear, especially with the mainstream media. I told you there was plenty going on today, and even though we are in day number 7 of the government shutdown, there was also some hearings going on in the Senate, and woo, buddy, did they get fiery.
What's trending today?
And we're getting more information out on what exactly happened under the Biden administration while, lovable Joe, lovable grandpa, middle-of-the-road Democrat that was uniting everybody, bringing everybody together, holding hands, singing Kumbaya. Was that necessarily the case? Is that what happened under the Biden administration? Of course not. We knew that not to be the case. And when Joe Biden stood up there with his stormtroopers with the red light up on him, and he says that Donald Trump and MAGA is the most extremist organization in American history, and they are a direct threat to American democracy and the foundation of our American democracy. This is what he was doing behind the scenes.
I also heard them said, and I just wrote it down because I wanted to be sure I heard it correctly. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies. Joe Biden never directed his attorney general to target his political opponents. That's interesting, because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it.
Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri.
We've got a list. Tapped my phone, tapped Lindsey Graham's phone, tapped Marsha Blackburn's phone, tapped 5 other phones of United States senators. Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phones of sitting United States senators because who knows why. They don't like them. They're members of the opposition party. They're Republicans. They're conservatives. You've seen this document, Attorney General Bondi. What was going on here? Who ordered this? Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators?
Senator Hawley, I cannot discuss the details of that right now for very good reason.
You're going to do a thorough investigation into this, I trust. Is that correct?
We will be looking at all aspects of this, and I have talked to Director Patel at length about this.
All right, so there it is. More information leaking out from the law enforcement agencies. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino with the FBI. We had the CIA. We have PM Bondi as Attorney General doing this hearing in front of the Senate committee today, releasing this information that now we have proof, the evidence from the FBI that they were monitoring, phone tapping elected officials, phone tapping Republicans. Why? Because they were associating themselves with Donald Trump. And again, just to put this into a bit of a perspective for you, I like to use the analogy of that domestic abuser syndrome, which we've coined here on this program, of what Democrats have done. Not just the political violence of, well, if you wouldn't be so hateful, which we define what hate is, and therefore we deem you as hateful, so therefore we are justified in attacking you, like Antifa and all these other different organizations that want to come after Black Lives Matter, whoever, that now we've deemed you as hateful because we define what hate is, so therefore we are justified in fighting you physically, verbally, harassing you, attacking you, shooting you, killing you, whatever. We've deemed you as hateful, so therefore we have the ability to do that because of this domestic abuser syndrome until you just go along with what we want you to do, believe in to do. But what else do abusers do other than just hit their victims? Oh, that's right. They actually monitor their communications with their family and with their friends. They monitor their phone logs. They watch everything that the victims do because, well, you can't be telling anybody else about what we do to you. We're here to control you. We're here to micromanage you. And again, if you would just trust me solely while I hit you and abuse you and take advantage of you, then we wouldn't have a problem here. The domestic abuser syndrome continues on. And the phone tapping from Republicans because, well, they worked with Donald Trump, they may be friends with Donald Trump, and they're part of the evil MAGA terrorist organization of MAGA. Therefore, we are justified in doing whatever it takes to come after you. More of this is coming out, and this is not going to be boding well for Democrats when more of this comes out to the public. Back at it again tomorrow for a Wednesday, day number 8 of government shutdown. We'll see what it looks like. We'll see you on the radio. Bye.